For months now, you've seen the headlines, the whispers, the speculation, everyone trying to piece together what really unfolded inside Harry and Meghan's marriage. The rumors kept spinning, stories kept shifting, and through all of it, Harry never said a word. No hints, no cracks, just unwavering loyalty to the woman he walked away from an entire royal empire to stand beside. But insiders say that silence has finally broken. People close to Harry claim he started revealing what life behind those Montecito gates was actually like, and what he's allegedly sharing isn't sad or dramatic. It's brutal. This isn't tabloid noise. These are the moments he never expected to voice. The emotional hits he never imagined would come from the person he trusted with everything. And once you hear what Meghan is rumored to have done, how calculated certain moves now seem, how personal the embarrassment allegedly became, you'll understand why those on the inside insist this isn't a normal breakup. This is a collapse, a slow, deliberate implosion, a quiet war built on secrets sharp enough to cut a prince down to size. This is the weight Harry has reportedly been carrying, and it's darker than anyone expected. So let's start at the moment everything truly snapped, the leak that forced Harry's silence to end. It all began with something tiny, a quiet whisper, not a headline about charity work, royal obligations, or family drama. This whisper struck far deeper. It hinted at something private, something inside Harry's personal life that no one should have known. The kind of leak so intimate, so humiliating that even the most relentless royal journalists hesitated before hitting publish. Radar Online didn't magically discover which medication Harry kept tucked away in his bathroom. Details that specific don't come from reporters digging, they come from someone inside the inner circle, someone close enough to know his routines, his habits, even the scents he used every morning. And according to those who claim to know, some believe that someone may have been Meghan Markle. The moment the public saw words like finasteride and minoxidil linked to Harry, everything stopped. These weren't harmless grooming items. They were the types of prescriptions rumored to carry side effects no man wants circulated publicly. Mood changes, emotional dips, and if insiders are to be believed, personal issues that strike right at a man's confidence. Overnight, Harry's most private medical details became a global joke. And it wasn't just the leak itself. It was the way it was delivered, gentle wording, concerned friends, vague hints that something was off with him, that the intimacy had faded because of issues on his side. Sweet on the surface, but underneath it, a razor. It didn't feel like a simple exposure of vulnerability. It came across as something shaped, polished, and released with precision. For Harry, the war had already begun long before he realized a battle line had been drawn. When the story hit the press, the pattern became clear almost immediately. This wasn't about hair treatments. It wasn't even about medication. It was about dominance. The kind of narrative control some say Meghan understood better than anyone in Harry's world. This is a woman who built her public rise on image, strategy, and timing. Every step from Hollywood hopeful to royal figure was executed with sharp awareness of how she wanted to be seen. So when the marriage started cracking, she didn't raise her voice or push back loudly. The spotlight simply moved, and many noticed. She shifted the attention without saying a word. According to those who watched things unfold, she had been preparing the narrative long before Harry realized anything was happening. She never openly announced she wanted out. Instead, she quietly told people close to her that something about Harry felt off, that he seemed distant, changed, no longer the man she once connected with. Small comments here and there that once put together created the image of a wife hurt by a husband who had supposedly let her down. And the media picked up that exact storyline. Meghan appeared composed, polished, even misunderstood. Harry, on the other hand, was painted as fragile, overwhelmed, and struggling to cope. Whether any of it reflected reality didn't seem to matter. What mattered was who framed the story first. Behind the scenes, Harry wasn't just losing his relationship, he was losing control of how his own life was being portrayed. The same woman he once trusted with every secret was now, according to insiders, using pieces of that trust against him. And each new detail reminded him that when she held something private, it wasn't about closeness, it became a tool. Long before the leak, long before the articles and whispers, their home had already shifted. What many imagined as a peaceful new chapter in California had slowly turned into a quiet battleground. People close to them say that after their second child, the warmth drained out of the house. Not with big fights or dramatic scenes, just a steady chill that settled in like mist. The spark they showed in public was nowhere to be found behind the gates. Date nights faded away, late-night laughter disappeared. Two people who once looked inseparable now moved around each other like colleagues sharing the same expensive space, connected only by schedules and responsibilities. Meghan focused on her image-driven projects, anything that let her maintain control over how the world saw her. Harry retreated inward, holding on to the hope that the closeness they once had might come back, but it didn't. According to those around them, he felt shut out long before anything spilled into the press. And Meghan, insiders say she simply grew uninterested. The fire that once ignited their passionate romance had completely died out. And rather than attempting to rebuild what was falling apart, she reportedly started orchestrating her departure silently, methodically, using the same calculated approach she brought to every major life decision. Because in Meghan's universe, abandonment isn't something that happens to her. She's always the one who walks away first. Meanwhile, Harry, completely blind to the storm clouds gathering around him, desperately tried to salvage a relationship that was already disintegrating from the inside. When historians examine this split, they'll focus on the scandals, the whispers, the public embarrassment. But the reality is this collapse didn't occur in one devastating moment. It unfolded through carefully orchestrated phases, methodical and strategic, developed over years of planning. And when you trace these phases step by step, the complete picture becomes painfully obvious. Phase 1, the royal ceremony. A worldwide celebration drenched in tradition and luxury. The monarchy watched nervously. Global audiences became enchanted. And Meghan entered the royal arena with the poise of someone who had already mapped out exactly how each photo would be captured. Beneath that glowing bridal expression, insiders suggest she was mentally calculating future opportunities. Media platforms, business collaborations, the enormous commercial value of holding a duchess title. Phase 2, the newlywed era, swift, dazzling, but carrying an undercurrent of tension just below the surface. Meghan supposedly confided to close friends that Harry was possessive, emotionally overwhelming, excessively dependent on her attention. Harry was convinced he'd discovered someone who valued his authentic self rather than his royal status. What he failed to understand was that she recognized his royal status quite clearly. Phase 3, after the kids, this is where everything went sideways. Once baby number 2 arrived, their mansion turned into an emotional wasteland. Not dramatic fights or screaming matches, just silence. The kind of silence that makes you feel alone even when someone's sitting right next to you. Harry kept hoping things would get better. Meghan started focusing on her public image projects, anything that kept her looking perfect to the outside world. Harry felt pushed out, ignored, like he didn't matter in her plans anymore. Phase 4, the leak campaign. This is when the dirty work started. Small stories at first, then bigger ones. Harry's private business somehow ending up in newspapers, each story designed to make him look weak and unstable. For Harry, it felt like someone was stabbing him in the back. For Meghan, sources say it was just business strategy. Phase 5, the video collection. Not divorce papers or lawyer meetings, just quiet, calculated psychological warfare. Meghan reportedly started showing certain recordings to her inner circle. Harry completely unconscious, Harry stumbling around at events, Harry at his absolute rock bottom. Each clip serving as proof that she controlled the narrative completely. By the time those medical details went public, their marriage wasn't falling apart. It was already finished. If those medication leaks embarrassed Harry in public, the supposed video collection crushed him behind closed doors. This is where palace insiders lower their voices when they talk, because it shifts the story from regular marriage problems to something much more sinister, something deliberately calculated. According to several sources, Meghan wasn't just saving text messages or email conversations. She was keeping video recordings from their most private moments together. Some harmless, others absolutely devastating. Harry unconscious after nights he'd prefer to forget. Harry barely functioning at social events. Harry potentially using drugs during times when everyone thought he was getting his life together, not falling apart. Even personal recordings that were supposed to stay between just the two of them. But here's the really disturbing part. Sources say she actually showed some of these videos to friends, not because she needed advice or emotional support, but to make a statement. This wasn't yelling or making threats, this was a power move. The kind of thing that shows someone exactly how much control you have over their entire existence. A personal collection of a prince's most embarrassing moments, stored on the phone of a woman planning her way out. For Harry, this wasn't just having dirt on him. This was psychological torture. Palace sources say he started living in constant terror of what might leak next. Every fight, every awkward moment in the house, every cold look between them came with the fear that another video could go public at any second. The most terrifying part? He had absolutely no clue how many recordings actually existed. It was only after the fractures in the relationship became undeniable, the leaks, the hidden clips, the humiliation, that the most volatile allegation finally surfaced. And it didn't appear early for a reason. This wasn't a headline meant for the start of the story. It was a late-stage whisper, shared quietly, cautiously, the kind of rumor insiders handle like a spark near dry brush. According to people claiming to have inside knowledge, Meghan may have never carried either of their children herself. One alleged source even suggested that a medical professional confirmed the involvement of surrogates. And while the transcript doesn't dive deeper into specifics, the implication alone was enough to cause shockwaves. Because in the UK, lineage isn't just family trivia, it's structure, tradition, the backbone of an entire institution. If there was even a possibility behind the rumor, it would trigger the kind of questions the palace has always avoided. Doubts about legitimacy, about heritage, about the truthfulness of a woman who built her image on openness and personal healing. For Meghan, insiders say it offered another narrative to shape privacy concerns, medical boundaries, emotional protection. But for Harry, it reportedly shook him to his core. A man who once promised to give his children the kind of upbringing he never had was now confronted with the idea that parts of that very story might have been kept from him. Instead of clarity, he was left wrestling with uncertainty, wondering how much of his family reality had been hidden behind carefully chosen words. It was the last and most volatile rumor in a long chain of damage, the one that didn't just strain the marriage but rattled Harry's entire understanding of his life. This is where everything ties together, because at its deepest level, this was never simply a tale of a prince wronged or a duchess breaking free. It was the story of two people living in completely different realities until the divide between them grew so wide neither could cross it. Picture Harry now, a man who walked away from the institution he was born into, believing love would finally give him the peace he'd been chasing his entire life. Someone who traded palaces for the California coastline, rank for independence, protocol for passion. And yet here he is, left without the very things he thought he safeguarded by leaving his privacy, his dignity, his relationship, even his sense of who he was. Every secret he trusted someone with became a headline. Every moment of vulnerability turned into ammunition. Every private memory risked becoming the next rumor. Meanwhile, Meghan, polished and composed, was already forging ahead. Her documentation, her narratives, her reinventions, each one a trophy from a story she reportedly controlled from start to finish. In this telling, she wasn't fighting to preserve the marriage. She was fighting to come out on top, and when she said "I do" at the altar, people who claimed to know her say it wasn't a promise of forever, it was a promise of triumph. The man who abandoned the throne to build a different future watched that future collapse beneath him. And the woman who once stood beside him walked away unscathed, head high, story intact. And this is where the cracks in Harry's life stop feeling like simple relationship fallout and start looking like something deeper. Something that began long before Meghan ever entered the picture. Because after the chaos, the leaks, the whispers, and the dismantling of everything he thought he built, Harry was forced to confront a truth he spent years avoiding. None of this started in Montecito. It started the night he lost the only person who ever understood his fear of the spotlight. Diana's shadow wasn't just a memory in his world. It shaped every choice he made, every instinct he followed, every attempt to protect the woman he loved from the press that once hunted his mother. People who've watched Harry over the years say he didn't fall for Meghan casually. He clung to her with the desperation of someone terrified that history might repeat itself. Every harsh headline about Meghan, every paparazzi shot, every negative article hit the same bruise he'd been carrying since he was 12. To Harry, it didn't matter whether the criticism was fair. It felt familiar. It felt dangerous. It felt like Diana being torn apart all over again. Insiders claim this is where the power dynamic quietly shifted. Meghan didn't need to yell or threaten. All she had to do was look hurt, overwhelmed, misunderstood, and Harry would spiral into protective mode. That instinct wasn't about Meghan alone. It was about the ghost of his past, the woman he couldn't save, the loss that shaped the rest of his life. Meghan stepped into a story already half-written, where Harry played the role of rescuer long before he realized he needed rescuing himself. And here's the uncomfortable truth some close to the couple whisper by the time their marriage began to crumble. Harry wasn't just fighting for the relationship, he was fighting to avoid reliving his childhood trauma. Leaving the royal family wasn't just rebellion, it was an emotional reflex, a desperate attempt to outrun the monster that stole his mother. But trauma doesn't disappear, just because you change countries or titles. It follows you, it shapes your decisions, it blinds you to red flags you should have seen coming. In the end, Diana became the invisible third force in their marriage, guiding Harry, comforting him, and sometimes trapping him in choices he didn't fully understand. And as the truth of his situation finally started to unravel, he had to face the question he'd spent years avoiding. Was he protecting Meghan? or trying to save Diana one more time. When the influence of Diana's memory finally collided with the reality of his unraveling marriage, Harry found himself standing in unfamiliar territory, alone, disoriented, and surrounded by a silence louder than any argument. For years, his identity had been shaped around protecting someone, first his mother's legacy, then Meghan's image. But once the truth of their fractured relationship came into focus, he was left staring at a version of his life that felt stripped of purpose. And that's when the real unraveling began. People close to him say the days after the rumors and revelations weren't filled with anger the way outsiders expected. They were filled with a crushing sense of confusion. Harry wasn't sure which parts of his story were true anymore. Had he made decisions out of love or fear? Did he walk away from the crown to build a new life or to escape a shadow he couldn't outrun? And most difficult of all, how long had he been ignoring the signs sitting right in front of him? Sources describe him moving through his Montecito home like a guest instead of a partner. Rooms once filled with optimism now felt like movie sets left behind after filming wrapped. Conversations were short, clipped, careful, as if both of them knew the ending but neither wanted to say it. Meghan, ever composed, reportedly shifted her focus toward the future. New branding, new partnerships, new narratives to shape. Harry, meanwhile, drifted without an anchor. The man who once walked away from royalty now had no idea where he belonged. Hollywood didn't help. In private circles, some viewed Harry with sympathy, others with indifference, and a few with the cold, calculating interest that only the entertainment industry can produce. A prince in emotional freefall makes for compelling gossip, but not much else. And Harry could feel it, this subtle shift from fascination to fatigue. Insiders say this was the moment he realized the one thing he feared most had come true. He no longer controlled any part of his story. Not the past shaped by Diana, not the present shaped by Meghan, and not the future that seemed to be slipping further away every time another rumor spread. For the first time, Harry had to face life without someone else's narrative guiding him. And the question that haunted him most was painfully simple. Who was he when he wasn't protecting anyone? And after everything, the whispers, the leaks, the quiet power plays, the unresolved trauma, the phases of a marriage breaking apart, Harry is left with a truth he never expected to confront. None of this was really about headlines or scandals. It was about identity. About a man who spent his entire life trying to protect others, only to realize he never learned how to protect himself. The collapse of his marriage didn't happen in a dramatic explosion. It unfolded slowly, piece by piece, until he finally saw the shape of the damage he'd been carrying. Insiders say the most painful part isn't the betrayal or the rumors, it's the realization that he built his new life on foundations he never truly examined. He believed stepping away from the crown would free him, but instead he walked into a storm with no armor and no sense of direction. For years he thought loyalty and sacrifice would be enough to hold everything together. But when the walls finally came down, he was left facing a version of himself he didn't recognize. People close to him say he moves differently now. Quieter, more guarded, as if he's still waiting for the next blow. Not from the press, not from the palace. From the past he never stopped running from. Meghan, meanwhile, continues forward with the same certainty she brought into the relationship. New ventures, new narratives, new opportunities. And whether one believes the rumors or not, the contrast between them has never been more visible. But here's the unexpected twist that insiders whisper with a kind of reluctant sympathy. This ending might be the first moment Harry has ever been forced to live for himself. No palace expectations, no royal protocol, no shadow of Diana's tragedy dictating his choices, no partner shaping the story before he can speak. Just Harry, without titles, without armor, without someone else's version of him. For the first time, he has no role to play. And maybe that's the beginning of the healing he didn't know he needed. Because beneath the heartbreak, beneath the chaos, beneath the narrative tug-of-war that defined the last decade of his life, there's one quiet, undeniable truth. Harry is finally standing at a place where he can choose what comes next. Not out of fear, not out of duty, not out of the need to protect someone else, but because he's ready to understand who he is when he isn't being shaped by everyone around him. And perhaps that's the twist no one expected. Not the collapse, not the rumors, not the secrets, but the possibility that after losing everything he thought he built, Harry might finally have a chance to build something real.